Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is June 2nd, 2018. Good Saturday to everybody. Take a look at our current solar wind conditions. Right now we're sitting at a 635.7 kilometers per second with a density of a 5. Take a look at our sun today. We still have sunspot AR2712. It still has beta gamma magnetic field that harbors energy for M-class solar flares. However, I was looking at this earlier and we had some B-class flares crackle out of this, and that's about it. Sunspot number 22. Taking a look at our KP indices. Right now we're checking in at a 4, just below storm conditions, and our 24-hour max is also at a 4. And here is the SDO. That was the Earth-facing coronal hole that gave us our G1 yesterday. Let's go ahead and take a look at it in motion. And here we go. As you see, that coronal hole is turning away. AR2712 is also turning away. Now, we are watching the far eastern limb right now. We haven't seen any signs yet of a potential sunspot region, but again, it is an active region that we are paying a close attention to. And taking a look at our TSI reading for today, right now, as of May 25th, we are looking at a 1360.802. So quite a jump considering we've seen this toggle back and forth between the 0.60 and the 0.70 value. And here it tops and jumps way up to 1360.802. And right now, currently, we have 31 volcanoes in eruption at this current time, including Kilauea and Popocatépetl also has recently erupted, and others to follow. But I just wanted to show right now we're looking at 31 current active volcanoes. And let's take a look here at one of our articles today. This one is from AOL. You've got volcano news. Hawaii volcano eruption enters new phase as crater falls quiet. As lava continued to pour vigorously from the ground fissures at the foot of Kilauea volcano, the month-old eruption on Hawaii's Big Island has entered a new, seemingly calmer phase inside the summit crater. And this is according to government scientists. But volcanologists monitoring and measuring Kilauea's every move during the past 4 weeks had to add the latest change to the volcano's behavior, while undoubtedly significant, leaves them uncertain about what will follow. And they've said this from day one, too. The summit crater, which began ejecting ash and volcanic rock in a periodic daily eruptions in mid-May, has largely fallen quiet since Wednesday. According to Kyle Anderson, a U.S. Geological Survey geophysicist, the apparent reason newly revealed footage recorded by drone aircraft flown over the summit is that tons of rocky material shaken loose from the inside walls of the crater have plugged up the bottom of the void. So what happens next is unknown. It's possible that new explosions will blast through the rubble at the bottom of the vent, and these may or may not be larger than previous explosion, he said. It also is possible that the vent could become permanently blocked, ending the explosions entirely. So it's a 50-50 shot here. They don't know. And we will continue to watch this. I'll leave the link in the description. Take a look at, I've mentioned this before. Excuse me. I've mentioned this before, how we have continued to see countless headlines of Indian farmers who end their lives over crop loss. And just to prove it, I know I always talk about it. Unfortunately, there were 2 separate occasions. One man who was 40 years old, he took a pesticide that ended his life. And then we had a 70-year-old farmer who also ingested pesticide as well in the same vicinity of that area. So 2 farmers within 2 days ending their lives over crop loss. And this is getting serious, like not just in across the world, but over here as well in the U.S. As farmers here in Western North Carolina, they have, I was reading this before we went live, basically the water that they're holding right now is going to ruin their crop. And here he says right here, the owner say Henderson County Agricultural Extension Office will assess the crops next week. However, if any of the harvest is salvageable, there's a risk that the floodwaters contaminated the crops, and if the crops are ruined, that means prices will rise on fruits and vegetables. So what they mean by contaminated waters is we don't know if this floodwater was mixed with back sewage. You certainly can't harvest vegetables that are soaking in possible raw sewage or all kinds of bacteria that have nothing to do with the crop field in the first place. And one farmer is quoted saying, it's hard because that was our first crop, our first planting of it. And now we usually do more planting so that we can make a profit later. But this first crop was kind of a ruin. So now instead of where they kick into another gear where they're making their profit planting right now they're trying to make up for their losses at the point where they're normally trying to set up their profits. So this storm, Alberto, brought enough rain. It wasn't nothing like the windstorm or anything like that, but this brought enough rain to where it's going to change this local economy here in North Carolina, and they're possibly looking at hopefully crossing their fingers at better weather so they can at least try to get their what usually is their profit crops in the ground. Now it's to help make or break the season. And same story here in southern Texas. We've talked about the drought out here. Back in May, farmers told KRIS News that if they did not get rain soon, they would have to cut their losses and rely on their insurance company and hope they have a good cotton season. Again, another part of the country. Now, these guys are dealing with a drought, not rain, but their backup crop is what they're now banking on because they're kind of looking at the first part of this grow season as a loss. There's still no rain here in South Texas, and now many area farmers west of Corpus Christi, like Ray Patrick, are being forced to cut their losses and now have started to harvest crops as a forage rather than take them to grain. And that's a big loss, according to Mr. Patrick. He says it's pretty bad because we got money borrowed from banks, of course, to finance these crops, and they are not going to get enough return to pay the banks off. Altogether, that amounts to 2,000 acres, and 2,000 acres at $250 an acre is going to amount about $500,000 in costs. If we don't get some relief soon, it just won't affect our farmers. It will also affect our local economy. So, again, some of these farmers are, kind of getting a little bit antsy here as two different parts of the United States have to rely on their backup crops to bail them out because of how bad. Well, first of all, we all know how cold it was through April. And then, ironically enough, some parts of the United States, like here in Buffalo, we had a record May for being one of the warmest on record. However, temperatures are due to hit in the low 60s again by Monday. We'll get into that here in a bit. Severe storms race across Arkansas into Saturday evening, and I'll quickly show us the local radar right now. And as we get ready to read this article, we do see we got a line of thunderstorms going through Missouri and Arkansas right now, possibly hitting the northwestern parts of Mississippi and Tennessee and Kentucky. However, these do appear to be fizzling out. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what AccuWeather wrote about the storms tonight. Refreshing change in the weather headed to lower Mississippi Valley will come at the expense of some severe thunderstorms into Saturday evening. The same storm that ignited damaging thunderstorms and tornadoes across north-central states on Friday will target southern Missouri, Arkansas, and surrounding areas with severe weather. AccuWeather storm warning meteorologist Brian Knopik Anticipate severe weather to redevelop into early Saturday night. Damaging winds, local flash flooding, and large hail will be the main threats with a low chance for a tornado. And here we are looking at mainly Arkansas being the biggest part here. We're looking at damaging wind gusts, flash flooding, large hail, and travel disruptions. More probably the top three than the bottom. Even in the absence of flooding, motorists will always face reduced visibility at heightened risk of vehicles hydroplaning when traveling at highway speeds. Such hazardous conditions can unfold as stretches of interstates 30, 40, 49, and 55 for a time. So basically, everyone just be safe tonight as you're traveling home or away for the weekend. And here they talk about some more refreshing weather coming our way towards the southeast. We will see less humidity, and that'll start on Sunday, according to the AccuWeather forecasters here. So we will see a dry ending to the week here for most of us, but they are predicting a resurgence of steamy air and sizzling temps to follow the rest of the work week as we progress through. So don't get too used to it. We are getting a break in some areas. Again, I'll leave the link in the description. And just to talk about some more severe weather, June 1st, yesterday, we had tennis ball size hail falling in north central Nebraska as the storm begins to move across the state. Of course, this was pictures that we saw on Twitter, just like normal. Tennis ball size hail in Nebraska. And then we had some tennis ball, golf ball, and even baseball size here in Roundup. Now, Roundup residents are busy cleaning up today after devastating damage done from the thunderstorm on Thursday evening. And I'd go ahead and start a little bit of this video here. We take a look at some of the hail. This is some of the damage to the cars. Of course, they're talking about how insurance adjusters, I mean, look at this car right here. You can't fix that right there, folks. And I'm talking about the little riddled holes of hail along the windshield and up the door, the top of the door near the roof rack. These cars they're going to be total losses with these insurance claims. It says here it broke window, it shredded the blinds, and then it forced glass inside. We were holding the curtains down. It was still coming through, says a Roundup resident, Gail Armstrong. Residents were busy Friday picking up shards of glass, boarding up windows, assessing what some said was the worst storm they had seen come through the city. Wind gusts reached up to 60 miles per hour, and precipitation rates, they reached well above 2.5 inches per hour and about 2.5 inches wide. Jeez. One resident says, I've lived here my whole life and I've never seen storms like this. Justin Russell, Department of Emergency Service Coordinator. We had baseball-sized hail sustained for about 20 to 30 minutes. Took out most north-facing windows, west-facing windows as well. Any vehicles that were undercover had severe damage. That weren't undercover. Not only was there damage done during the storm from hail, but residents like Armstrong had to deal with drains around her house clogging from leaves, causing the streets to flood. Flooding from last night's storm and early this morning caused Roundup to be 18 inches over flood stage for the area. It has since been dropped a foot, but Russell said is causing some field and lowland flooding down the river. So, very active night last night in the heart of the country, the northern central plains. Taking a look at more flash flood threats to focus on mid-Atlantic central Appalachians this weekend. Some communities in the mid-Atlantic states will be at risk for dangerous flash flooding this weekend. And I'll go ahead and reiterate here what they're talking about. And if you guys look here, right above Virginia and West Virginia, New Jersey, Philadelphia, that area right there, you're not seeing things. That is an easterly flow from the Atlantic. So it's coming inland, but this low-pressure system from the west is what's keeping it from progressing any further inland. And once that storm system across the central plains comes through, it will push this storm off. But right now, we're talking about possibility of floods here. Downpours are projected to increase in number and duration as a press of cooler air from the Great Lakes interacts with tropical air already in place. This, according to Metro News. Volunteer firefighters had 6 calls for swift water rescue in Hampshire County in West Virginia on Friday night alone. Authorities said several roads were closed by flooding and a few homes were impacted. There are also reports of farms being evacuated in Pendleton, West Virginia on Saturday. U.S. Route 220 remained closed on Saturday afternoon between Petersburg and Moorfield, West Virginia, due to additional floods and new mudslides. During the weekend, a storm is forecast to develop near mid-Atlantic coast and may focus the heaviest rain along the swath from parts of West Virginia to much of Maryland, Delaware, southern Pennsylvania, and southern New Jersey. And as you see this area right here that is highlighted, we're going to be looking at chances of localized flooding, lightning, and possible travel disruptions. Part of this area has been hit hard with torrential downpours, flash flooding, mudslides in the recent days. Last weekend, flash flooding swept through Ellicott City in Maryland. Based on a persistence and excess amount of moisture in the atmosphere and that the new storm, there is an ongoing threat for localized torrential rainfall. There's that word again, torrential rainfall. We had it a few days here in western New York as well. The heaviest rain is expected to north, and any downpour can renew flooding in North Carolina and the mountains this weekend. A general 1 to 3 inches of rain is a forecast through Sunday across the mid-Atlantic. However, highly localized amounts of 4 to 8 inches may slam some communities over a several-hour period. So here we go, getting anywhere from 1 to 2 months worth of rain in just an hour. Very spotty, gusty thunderstorms may also occur in the region, especially south of steady rain in the area from North Carolina to southeastern Virginia. So, going to keep our eyes on this region here Sunday. Looks like parts of western New York start to see the effects from this storm, and this is the low pressure system that's going to push that Atlantic low pressure that's pushing moisture in back out to sea. And behind it is going to be a lot cooler temperatures. We're slated to be in the 60s. It says it'll be a cool start to New England with highs in the 50s in some areas. Highs not far from the 70s are more common in early June. So you think you have it bad in western New York? Well, there's other parts that are going to be highs in the 50s on June 3rd. So we'll keep our eyes on that weather as well. And unfortunately, an area that needs rain is not getting any right now. And gusty winds produced by a thunderstorm targeting this Ute Park fire in northeastern New Mexico has charged more than 27,000 acres and buildings on the famed Philmont Scout Ranch. Now, the fire is burning about 70 miles northeast of Santa Fe right now. Nearly 450 fire personnel are currently battling the blaze, which remains at 0% containment right now. The main weather concern for firefighters on Saturday will be a breeze from the southeast at 7 to 14 miles an hour. That's not good. Not with these dry conditions, and that's just enough winds. The winds are not anticipated to be strong enough to impact planes and helicopters, helping douse the blaze. The winds may spread smoke from the fire into the southern Colorado into Saturday evening. Lighter winds early on Sunday morning can hold the smoke over areas closer to the vicinity of the fire. Much needed rain is in the forecast for Sunday afternoon and evening. However, thunderstorms are also expected and can prove problematic for firefighters by kicking up gusty and erratic winds along with lightning dangers. And we will keep our eyes close to this area. This is especially this part here during Colorado and New Mexico has seen the worst part of this drought so far, and they have probably received the least amount of rain is in the New Mexico region. So they've had 12 to 14 structures have been destroyed because of this. Saturday, there's 300 structures that are threatened. 1,100 people under mandatory evacuation right now as well. In that area in the shaded red, that's where they're looking at damaging winds, large hail, flash flooding, drought relief. But the damaging winds, the hail, the flash flooding, we also have to watch out for any more additional fires sparked by lightning strikes. And I brought this one up today. This is old. This was back from January of 2014. But there's a history here with Forbes magazine and the grand solar minimum. And, you know, this particular writer here had mentioned the polar vortex phenomenon that went on, and also the drought of California and summer temperatures so torrid down under that even play at the Australian Open was briefly halted. So this is where a lot of people saw the beginning of this freak cold snap. And reading this article here, there is a physicist by the name of Mark Giampa, a solar physicist at the NCO in Tucson, Arizona. And, you know, this guy was saying this back in 2014. I'm seeing a continuation in the decline of sunspots, mean magnetic field strengths, and a weakening of polar magnetic fields and subsurface flows. Theoretical details of how sunspots are actually produced continue to be debated, and they still are to this day, 4 years later. But one popular idea is that they are generated as the result of concentrated and twisted solar magnetic fields blocking internal convection in the outer third of the sun's interior. This in turn gives the sunspots their dark appearance, since the average temperature is around 2,000 degrees cooler than the surrounding solar plasma. And here's an example of where solar cycle 24 had begun and solar cycle 23 had been. But, you know, the main reason I wanted to bring this up was just to, you know, kudos to Forbes, continuously writing very accurate articles. I'll leave the link in the description. If you read through this yourself, you will see that everything that they're talking about is what they're talking about now. The Maunder minimum is being mentioned several times. Now, of course, there's still talk about man-made global warming being the reason for everything, and that, you know, there still be, you know, it won't put a dent into the global warming. But I found it interesting too here that Giampa also had said if we're entering in a Maunder minimum, it could persist until the 2080s. And that's a very, very good, that's a safe prediction. I think other people are thinking way longer than that. So it was just good to see that even back here in 2014, and I remember that polar vortex phenomenon that he speaks of. It was it was very shocking to feel that kind of cold air, not being from a colder type climate in southwestern Ohio. -17 for our daytime high is not normal. All right, and before we get into our quick weather check, NASA is targeting for 2024 for the launch of a new mission to learn more about the generation of cosmic rays in the heliosphere. Okay, great job, NASA. Thank you. We're taking away that grant money for man-made global warming research. Now we're going to start doing things that are important. However, I'm not sure if maybe they just think in 2024 that we will be at the peak of this spotless period of, you know, highly increased cosmic rays entering our atmosphere at that time, low activity. It's possible. But they're going to study things like the collision limits about the harmful cosmic radiation entering the heliosphere. IMAP is what they call it short, will collect and analyze particles that make it through. And it says here, this is the boundary where our sun does a great deal to protect us. And what they mean by that is when the sun is stronger and is projecting more output, more TSI, our magnetic connection to the sun is also stronger, which strengthens the magnetosphere and protects our planet from cosmic rays entering our atmosphere. Now, as you all know, we're in a minimum, and we are going through weakening of magnetic fields. Therefore, we are experiencing more cosmic rays. In fact, each time we go to SPACEWEATHER for their update, it tends to go up anywhere from 3 to 5% each time they report on it. And I think it's important to keep driving home to everybody about cosmic rays and their vital part in these rain bombs, in these snow bombogenesis, these towns picking up 8 inches of rain in 2 hours, where maybe they don't see that kind of rainfall in 4 months. That is due to the increased particles in our atmosphere. And sure, we already have natural particles, and it's proven that there are particles in the atmosphere from man. However, it is a small part. It plays a small role compared to what the role that cosmic rays play. So I'm glad to see that finally that we're actually going to do some research in a field that's actually necessary right now, especially since we are heading into a deep solar minimum. And I think the point of this channel and other channels alike, we continue to keep showing you guys the proof is out there. More and more research is being done. More and more people are coming back with, we are cooling, not warming. And, you know, it's images like this that convince me that we are witnessing something that I don't think many would probably think we would start witnessing by now. This is the North Atlantic Anomaly, the SST. And as of today, well, for yesterday's total, it was actually today, June 2nd, we came in at a temperature of negative 0.617. Yesterday reported on this, and we came in at a negative 0.589. And I know this is very, very, very tiny as far as how much this is moving, but again, just kind of incredible to watch this anomaly just bottom out in the middle of June. And if you guys remember, last year, we really thought it was a big deal to see the temperature drop to 0.21 above the baseline. And now we're talking about heading into the month of June being a 1.2 degrees Celsius cooler than that time last year. So we'll keep our eyes on this. As always, the GSM crew, I have faith, will also keep me abreast of the situation. But I wanted to show you guys a quick look at what we're expecting weather-wise, and I'm going to go through the temperature runs as well. We'll start with the precipitation. As we see Saturday night, that system off of the East Coast, looks like it's going to wreak havoc through Sunday and the weekend. That thunderstorm system, that's that low-pressure system that's going to push through by Monday, early Monday, into Monday afternoon, and that does take that little storm back out to the Atlantic Ocean. Very little chances for rain over Oklahoma and Texas on Tuesday. And really quiet, guys. I mean, considering what time of the year it is, just light to moderate shower chances along the East Coast and the far northern plains, and maybe some rain activity in the southern states, but nothing to really write home about. Now, we will watch next Thursday a possibility of some severe weather outbreak over Kansas and Nebraska, and again, possibly by Friday, a little bit more intense. But other than that, guys, over the next several days, for once, we have some fairly decent, quiet weather. There's a brief system that fires up late into next weekend across the Corn Belt into the Midwest, or I'm sorry, into the Mid-Atlantic. And it goes up through New England into late June 11th, I should say, early of the following work week. So, again, not too much going on. And also watching down here in the Gulf, I didn't see any developments forming around Guatemala or anything like that. So, and this is interesting because the GFS, once again, appears to be a little bullish, I think. But let's take a look. A little bit different picture here in the GFS. We can barely see it at the bottom here, and it's starting to peek its head through the Gulf. Now, GFS past the 12th has a low-pressure system that is going to go across Florida, the southern part, into the east coast of South Carolina. And according to the GFS, the south and the northeast is about to get soaked again, followed by a decent amount of moisture that's going to come across the northern plains into the Midwest and start up again once more in the southern part of the states. But it looks like the same for the areas that need the rain right now. New Mexico, Colorado, it's just not going to happen, unfortunately. Now let's take a look at our temperatures for the Continental 48 here, and then I'll check in with my rock solid producer here, Mari, who's keeping things in check out there in the chat, I guess. Anyway, taking a look at temperatures. Hey, looks like June to me for the Southwest, much of the South, but our daytime highs, if you guys watch this, here we are Sunday evening going into the overnight hours. We're in the 50s and 60s here in the Northeast, from Pennsylvania all the way through New England. And then as overnight hours come, we cool off a little bit more, and into Monday, a little bit of a rebound. But again, here we are. These are daytime highs here in the northern part of the United States, from Pennsylvania. Even parts of West Virginia will see cooler temperatures. So New England starts off in the 60s for us on Monday. That's a daytime high temperature. And also the Northwest, you guys will stay relatively cool. The most of the country looks like we're having normal warmth in typical areas that we tend to see the warmth at this time of the year. Even Tuesday, we get into Tuesday afternoon, only dip into the 50s, but maybe rebound into the upper 60s, possibly for some parts that we're looking at low 60s on Monday. But just some seasonably cool weather is what I'm told it's called. But for June, I think a high temperature in the mid-60s is, not seasonable. Again, the Northwest also stays cool. So the pattern is going to stay the same for much of the week in the beginning, where the Northwest and the Northeast are cooler than usual. And even into Wednesday, there's indications in those same regions that we will see temperatures in the 50s and 60s. Now, by the end of the week, it does appear that we start to warm up just a little, and hopefully things will level back out. But it does tend to progress each day of this week to where we do start seeing warmer temperatures and hopefully closer to summer-like temps. But, even looking at Saturday on the 9th, I still see some light green mixed in by next weekend. So there's a chance that we're still just in the low 70s, upper 60s for highs, even into the weekend. So it's something it's worth watching here for the rest of the week, guys. The northern plains, the Southwest, the central U.S., you guys are experiencing normal June-like weather. The Northeast and the Northwest, right now, we have to keep our eyes on and see where that goes from there. All right, Mari. So, you've been quiet tonight. I'm assuming we've had a pretty easy night. How's everybody doing in the chat?
I got my old faithfuls here, Rob and Starman and Pisces, keeping things under control. And I'm doing great, Jake.
Good stuff.
Good stuff. Saturday Night Live. What can I say?
That's right. And good to see Pisces. It's a long time no see, my friend. Glad to see you in the chat tonight. It's good to have you around. Of course, Starman and Rob and who else? Mod-wise? Pisces. Yep, I mentioned him. Guys, Aqua, thank you.
I think
G. White was there. Guys, we appreciate you, taking time to come to our channel, not only just to participate in the chat, but to help keep it a safe and healthy debate and chatting area. We on YouTube, there's channels out there that can be controversial. I know there's other channels out there that have comment sections that can be horrifying at times, but I really have to give kudos to the folks that subscribe to this channel. It's been pretty relatively logical and intellectual for the most part, and a lot of real questions that people have on their minds and they want answers to. So, again, we really appreciate your support here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel, guys. That's going to do it for us tonight. We appreciate you tuning in. We will be back on the air on Monday at 9:30, and we promise we're getting that Per Strandberg interview out as soon as we can. It's been crazy, though, but we'll get it out there for you guys. All right, we'll talk soon. Have a good weekend.